Welcome to the Lioness Den podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Janell, and we are back, y'all. We're right back into the five-part series on her journey women through their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So, where did we leave off? We left off with women in their 30s, and this week we are talking about a woman's journey through her 40s. And if you're in your 40s, a lot of what we're going to talk about today will resonate with you. The 40s is a decade of reinvention, reflection, and renewed confidence because this is the decade in which you start letting go of all of that external validation and really focusing on what is best for you, and you stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. The 40s is invigorating, or it can be. If you've done an adequate amount of work in your 30s, the 40s is when you can really, really, truly step into your authentic self. I found myself feeling the most feminine, the most empowered, the most confident in my 40s. But it really had a lot to do with the fact that I did a lot of internal work in my 30s. I oftentimes tell women, do all of your work in your 30s. Take that work into your 40s and start to really unlock who you really truly are and what you really truly deserve. Now, one of the first things that you're going to notice when you step into your 40s, maybe early to mid 40s, is you're going to have to start navigating changes, body changes. Perimenopause oftentimes kick in around your early 40s, sometimes late 30s, and your body is going to start to do things that you weren't expecting. And a lot of times, women just don't talk about the effects of perimenopause on your mental and your physical. More importantly, prepare for this stage of life in your 30s. So, if you go back to my last episode, we talk a lot about being physically fit in your 30s, eating right in your 30s, because it will help you to navigate this change in your 40s. It's going to happen, ladies, like it or not. We're women. Perimenopause, menopause will be a part of your life at some point. So, when your body starts to physically change, whether it be just how you feel, it may not necessarily be how you look on the outside, but perimenopause affects your joints and your muscles and everything underneath, that physical being. And if you're not ready mentally for that, it can be a very, very difficult journey. Take the steps early on to prepare yourself because it can be a lot more difficult than women actually think. One of the other big changes in our 40s is, just family dynamics. You might have teenagers as opposed to preteens, or you might have aging parents that you need to tend to. So there's going to be a lot of family dynamics. You may become an empty nester. I mean, I didn't become an empty nester until I was well into my 50s, which I'll talk about in the next episode. But there are a lot of things that you may have settled into. And as you get closer to mid to late 40s, those dynamics are going to shift. And every shift in family dynamics create a shift in you. And you have to be ready for that. You have to be flexible. You have to look outside of yourself and be ready for all of those different changes, which may, by the way, be happening alongside perimenopause. So think about that. Now, let's talk briefly about, the professional side of you when you're in your 40s, because once you reach 40, this is when you're going to start looking at your career. So, I mentioned earlier that the 40s is the season of reinvention. And when you start talking about your career, this is the time. This is the time you can make a shift. You can do anything you want in your 40s. I made a complete career change in my 40s. I became a leader in my 40s. You can do whatever you want to do, but this is the time that you start getting closer and closer to that retirement age. And you want that nest egg to be as big as you can possibly get it because you don't want to find yourself 60, 70 years old having to work. 40 is still young enough to do a whole lot of things. 40 is a time where you can continue. I grinded it out in my 40s, y'all. I did. I did a lot in my 40s. So this is the time to get it done. Get it done. Now, if you're already in your 40s, this will resonate with you. The power of saying no. No, hell no, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like you start to prioritize yourself and your needs, and you realize I don't have to say yes to everything. I can absolutely say no to the things that no longer serve me, whether it be family, friends, coworkers, it doesn't matter. You know, this is also a stage in which if you're in a toxic, bad relationship, a bad marriage, a bad relationship, and you start to reinvent yourself and you realize that, time is a ticking, this is the time where a lot of divorces occur. And I'm not advocating divorces, but what I am advocating is that to stay in a toxic or bad relationship just for the sake of being in one is where a lot of women go wrong. And you see women on social media all the time. They're in their 60s and their 70s and they just feel stuck because during that period of time where they recognize this is not it, this is not it. And life is too short. So if it can't be worked out, and again, I don't advocate divorce, but I do advocate that you advocate for yourselves. I do advocate that. And we have to look at like our 40s as this is the time where you're doing a lot of reflection on what did I accomplish in my 20s? What did I accomplish in my 30s? And you start really self-analyzing your life. Because think about it, our life expectancy here in the United States is somewhere around 77, 80-ish. So this is the mid. You know how we talk a lot about men going through a midlife crisis. I honestly believe, if I have to be 100% with you, we go through a midlife crisis too. We're going to stop and say, well, wait a minute, I'm halfway there. What have I accomplished and what more can I get done? And the 40s is the time that that happens. And we may not go out and do anything outlandish, but it is a time of self reflection. We start paying attention to our bodies. We start paying attention to the changes going on around us. We start paying attention. We're not living in that, in my 30s. I did this a little bit earlier. I did it in my 30s, but I just remember my 20s. I wasn't even thinking. I wasn't thinking, just doing shit. An analogy I oftentimes use is have you guys ever like driven from point A to point B and you're so distracted by whatever your thoughts or whatever else is in your head and you get to point B and you didn't even pay attention to anything that was going on around you when you got from point A to point B, and then you get into an accident. Let's say on a different occasion you get into an accident. It could be a fender bender, but you get into an accident and that accident will make you from the accident on, it's going to shift your mind to start paying more attention. Well, that's kind of what happens in our lives. You know what I mean? It's like things are going to happen that's going to force you to pay more attention. And when you get into your 40s, whatever you have experienced in your 20s and 30s, you get to your 40s, you will start to pay more attention, whether it be any of the things that I described earlier, but it's going to force you to pay more attention. And with that being said, likely in your 40s, you've experienced some losses, you've experienced some ups and downs, and you've built some resilience. And that's the beauty of kind of becoming more of a woman in your 40s because you've built up some resilience. You've had your heart broken once or twice. You've suffered through some losses and you made it through. You know what I mean? You've had some ups and downs and you didn't die. It's all okay. You're here. So the 40s is really a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for you to then launch into that next phase or the 50s. But use this time as an opportunity to also pivot. Look around and see what else can I do to kind of chisel my life into what exactly I want it to be. mental health, paying attention to preventative medical things. Get into the doctor. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and otherwise. So, with all of that being said, your 40s is the perfect opportunity to rediscover yourself, set new goals, get excited about this season. I loved my 40s. I did so much in my 40s, y'all. I enjoyed my 40s immensely. So, this is the best time to celebrate your wisdom and your experience because you're gaining wisdom. Now you can start talking to those 20-year-olds that's knocking themselves out, worrying about what everybody else thinks. You're 40, you've been there, done that. With that said, we're going to take that wisdom next week right into our 50s because I've done that too. So until the next time, have a blessed day, ladies, and I'll see you next week.